Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Thank you to all the listeners out there that come each and every week and listen to us. Make sure you subscribe and give us a like if you like what we're doing. And if you don't, reach out to me, tell me what you want to hear. Today, we're excited to have a guest that's going to be talking about making an impact as a leader. We have Katie Nehl. Katie, give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what credit union you work for and a little bit about your credit union.
Yeah, thanks, James, for having me on the podcast. I am honored to be here. Like James said, my name is Katie Nehl. I'm the Communications Manager for First Community Credit Union. So we're an 81-year-old credit union, and we first began in Jamestown, North Dakota, like many credit unions, with a very small amount of members, only 40-some members, very humble beginnings, to now over 44,000 members. So First Community Credit Union, as you'll hear me call it FCCU throughout this podcast, we're actually the largest credit union in North Dakota with 20 branches across North Dakota and western Minnesota. So I'm very blessed to work for an awesome team, for an amazing credit union. My journey with the credit union world began 7 years ago. I never knew what a credit union was. I grew up on a ranch in western North Dakota, so I grew up riding horses and rodeo and stuff, which my husband and I still do today. But more importantly, I grew up not knowing much about finances. And fast forward, after graduating college, I was looking for a different job. And my aunt told me to apply for this summer job, not summer job, but just this job in the eastern part of North Dakota. And here I was, 21 years old, and I didn't know what a credit union was because we didn't have them in my small town. And I didn't see myself working in finance either. I didn't know hardly how to, I rarely balanced my checkbook. I checked it online and I'm like, okay, it's good. I got money. I'm fine. And I applied for this job as a marketing specialist, fell in love with the people, the town, the credit union motto of giving back. And we had an amazing CEO who's still our CEO today, Steve Schmitz, and an outstanding boss who still is my boss today, Jana. And here we are nearly 8 years later, working in the credit union industry, and now I'm the communications manager, and I couldn't imagine it any other way working anywhere else. I truly love the credit union, making a difference, and just all that credit unions stand for.
I want to talk to you a little bit about something that, I think that is a problem right now, right? That's the topic that we have at hand today that we're going to talk about, and that's making an impact as a leader. I think it's tougher than ever with COVID happening, with the riots that have been happening. Our country's in turmoil, right? So let's talk about a little bit of why we're choosing this topic right now. That to me is the framework of it all. Like we are in a time that really needs leadership. People need to be not only led, but they also need to have the freedom to lead themselves. So what are your thoughts on this topic in general?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think right now, like you said, COVID is a huge thing, and we're all feeling that impact of COVID. And whether you're a parent, worried about your kids going to school, or a caregiver of someone who is more susceptible to getting it, or even a business that has to close, or a business that's making money from COVID, who knows? We're all in different situations, and we're all feeling some kind of impact somehow, some way. And it's hard to even talk about COVID all the time, but it's there, it's here, and that's all we talk about. And so I think now more than ever, it really truly is important to implement that framework for making an impact, whether that's at your home life, in your child's life before he or she goes back to school, and just in your business, as I guess we'll get into a little bit later. But it's truly crucial right now to try to make an impact, whether it's in your own life or someone else's.
I should mention how I found Katie. So if you've been listening to the podcast a little bit, I find a lot of really, really good folks through the CUInsights community. Katie happens to have written quite a few articles on there. So I reached out to her because of an article that she wrote almost a year ago, but it's still so relevant, and I loved the framework of it. So I thought we could talk about that today. But let's first talk about where are the big challenges that credit unions face right now, and what are the challenges that they might face in the future when it comes to just leadership.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges right now for financials and for many businesses, but financials especially, that we're an essential service. So through all this, people need access to their money, right? But furthermore, people are dealing with, okay, I have to be at home and I have to have my kids at home with me. And so how do you keep your business open, but also have your staff work from home? And that was definitely a new situation for our credit union, because we really never had to have staff work at home. And so then our senior leadership, they needed to plan, okay, we need people in the physical branch. They need to be helping drive up members. We need loan officers to be on call helping people, but we also still need to protect our members' information and their finances. So we can't just hook up to any Wi-Fi, right? And so a big challenge was this uncharted territory of how do we manage that work-life balance and keep our employees happy and healthy and at home, but if they want to be at home or need to be at home, but also keep the doors open and keep these essential services going. So I think that was a really big challenge for our CEO and our senior management team. And they just did an amazing job trying to figure out how to make that work for our staff when every situation is different. But that was a big challenge, is the unknown. We didn't know how long it would last. We still don't know how long it will last, and trying to accommodate that and making sure that we're keeping our employees happy and healthy and still wanting them to be comfortable going to work every day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think that it's talked about enough how much credit unions are doing to have an impact on not just the communities with what's happening right now. I mean, they're keeping businesses afloat. They're keeping people afloat. That's not talked about enough. And I would love to highlight more of that stuff. So with this situation that happened at your credit union, with everything that's going on with COVID, tell me one thing that you loved that senior leadership did that maybe somebody else could take away and try it in this time.
Yeah, so I don't think I can say enough how amazing our senior leadership team is, and our CEO and my boss. And one of the things I think that they did so well, I mean, they do amazing, great things, but one of the things that they did so well through all this was just that open and clear communication. I think out of everything, if people face some of the challenges, it might have been from lack of communication or confusing communication. And especially as a marketing person myself, the biggest thing was that they were so open and transparent, and they themselves reiterated so many times that we are navigating through uncertain waters, but they are still going to be as open and honest and transparent and as they could be. And they just, every situation is different again, but they were so understanding and strong and just led with such compassion, knowing that we're going to get through this all together. And I think they did that through just outstanding communication.
I love that, because, it's undersold how much fear is going through people's minds and hearts right now. And I think it is the leadership's job to do what they can to minimize that fear at any point that they can. Right. And I think that's a really, really good that your leadership has done that, because that's something that I think that more could do. They don't focus on the fact that the back end of this are their employees that are just as fearful as the members are, right? The members not being able to come into the branch for the first time and having to do digital communication for the first time and having to text for the first time about their finances. I mean, this is a real shift of the culture of a credit union, right? And with their members, and that fear exists for the members, but it is just as equal for the employees.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, fortunate for us, we're a large credit union. We had all those technology things in place. We couldn't have been in a better spot with those things. But like you said, for many of our members who they never needed to use those apps, why would they? They just come in and they see the staff and they take care of their transactions and stuff. And so many of them, it was a learning curve. How do I run the app? How do I download this? What do you mean my money's out there and I can access it this way? And like I said, it's just been a whole whirlwind of learning and fear and all these different things. But through it all, I think, yeah, like I said, our leadership has been just so amazing, being open and honest with us and transparent. And also we've tried to be the same with our members, reiterate that we're here to help, that we have all these things in place. This is why our branches are closed and only our drive up, because we're trying to keep you safe, but you can still access us through these ways and we're still here to help. And we still did. I mean, it was amazing how many people still need their money. So it was amazing how much people still do rely on the credit union through this, all through good times and bad.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because if you think about it, there's a lot of companies out there and even outside of the credit union space or any space for that matter, there's a lot of leaders that go out and they'll say, yeah, we're here for you. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many emails I got during all of this. It's like, oh, we're here for you, right? This like fluffy little message. And while it's valuable, it doesn't mean anything without action. I mean, you have to not only portray that you're empathetic to the situation, but you actually have to show it. And I think that's the key here. That's one of the impacts that people can come away from this is don't just talk about it, be it and act it, right? There was somebody that reached out to me the other day and they were struggling as a leader to figure out, how they can have an impact on their team because they've come up with good framework. And I'm even guilty of this at times as a leader where we sometimes make really good Kool-Aid, but we don't serve it to ourselves.
Exactly.
So let's actually come back to the framework that you've put together in CUInsights. And let's talk a little bit about that. So the first thing that you have on there is listen. We've talked a little bit about that, about how, in order for them to serve your credit union, they had to listen and make sure that they understood exactly how to communicate it really clearly. So let's talk about the first one. First framework, listen.
Yeah, so my husband will joke with me that he's definitely the better listener out of the two of us, being I'm the communicator. So this one is definitely one that I as a leader in my position have to remind myself that you need to ask those questions and not just ask and repeat an answer right away, but you need to ask the questions and then really listen to what people are saying. So take time, sit down, get to know those around you. Ask your coworkers what makes them happy. Ask what fears that they have right now. And that's what our credit union did so well through this. I think, they had a form on our company intranet, if you will, and people could just type it in there and ask questions, and they didn't have to. They weren't always able to meet face to face, but maybe that was a safe space for them to ask these questions and then get an email back or a call back, or the whole company was able to hear the question, not knowing who submitted it, and hear the answer. And so that was a nice way that our senior management was able to listen to the fears that we have. But I think that's something that's just is one of the number one keys to making an impact is you don't know how to make an impact until you sit and listen to what others need and what they need in order for you to make an impact. And that takes patience and a lot of practice. Like I said, I'm still practicing to this day to be a good listener, but put your phone down that we're always on and engage with those around you and listen to what knowledge they have to offer. That's another way that you can make an impact, just by learning from others, by listening.
I had a struggle growing into my career where I would try to be a really, really good listener, but a lot of times I would listen to respond. So there's sort of this framework where you, instead of listening to respond, you listen to learn. Listen to learn, not to respond. Because then we become less reactive of a situation. We become less biased, and we can internalize the communication that's happening through that listening exercise. And that's something that I love. I just read it the other day, actually, about that little framework. The second thing that you have in this framework of yours is be real. We've talked a little bit about that, right? Like, you can't just be empathetic and talk the talk, but not walk the walk, right? So let's talk about being real.
Yeah, so I think nowadays that's probably, I mean, it's fitting that I wrote this over a year ago, but now out of anything, it's probably one of the hardest things to do right now, right? Is to be true to yourself. And it sounds so simple, yet so hard. And there's so many things that we're put under fire for nowadays if we believe in and if we make a mistake or if we were fearful to dream big. But if we wake up every day with a passion and that fire under our belt to do what we love, then, you know, we're being true to ourselves and we're keeping in mind our goals and our desires and dreams. And so, like I said, I think being real and authentic is a lot like listening. It's a lifelong practice, and it's something that you develop over time to understand your strengths and to learn to not worry about all the mistakes, because you know those mistakes are going to help you lead you to your goals one day. And I'm never afraid to laugh at myself. And so I think that's just so important, that laughing at yourself, this can be contagious and make a positive impact for those around you.
Yeah, I agree. The greatest failures in life usually lead to the greatest successes, the learnings that we can learn from that. And that's all about being real too. So the next one on your framework is work for a cause, not applause, which I love, by the way. Fantastic way to put it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we all know that one person, you know, who they just do something to get it done to add an achievement to their list, right? They really don't care about it, but they get this cool gold star and they're on it. They want to do it. And I've always been taught to work really hard, and, you know, hard workers are good workers, but you also have to remember not just to work hard, but to work hard for that cause. And I think that's where credit unions sometimes can succeed, is because we work hard because we want to give back and because there is a cause and there is a reason for us working hard. And so I'm just a huge person that's a believer in give more of your time and give more of your energy to things that you love because you love doing that. And maybe don't spend money on going out every weekend, but spend your money on charity, or go help with the soup kitchen, not to post about it on Facebook or Instagram or things like that, but just because it's the right thing to do. And so I'm a big believer that, you know, we were put here for a reason, and don't give more just to give more, but give more because you were given that talent, and work for that positive cause because it's the right thing to do.
I had mentioned this in a previous episode, but just it was July 31st, I believe was the date. It was National End Child Trafficking Day, right? And I was hurt by the amount of people that would not talk about it and wouldn't provide a platform for people to just be real. And, you know, I had done a few posts about it on LinkedIn, and I post a lot on there, and seeing the amount of traction that you get for silly little things that really don't make an impact on the world versus things that really are. And I think that you need to allow those passions that people have for causes to be present and to be openly talked about. Because I think that there is also this underlying fear for people in general that if they are for a specific cause, that maybe it's seen as somewhat political, right? That they're going to have the fear of ramification for their job, or they're going to be looked down upon, or anything like that. And I just think it's interesting because a topic that, you know, on July 31st, like, I don't know very many people out there that would be about ending child trafficking, right? It's not political, it's not controversial, but yet there was so many people that reached out to me. It's like, hey, loved seeing this from you, but they wouldn't talk about it in a public fashion, right? So there's fear mongering that happens within our world right now with the access to social media and all of that. So when we think about working for a cause and not applause, I also think it's important to also not be afraid to bring to light the causes that you're behind, you know, no matter what they might be, because I think that shows personality, that shows who you are. And you also have to allow your employees that same freedom. There's differences of opinions with people on my team that we have with politically or whatever it might be that are different, right? And that's normal. It's okay for people to not always be about the exact same things, and that's okay. But I think that we have to allow the freedom to be able to have a voice and talk about the things that we are truly passionate about.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I say a lot, the world would be a really boring place if we all were exactly the same. So, and that goes back to my point number 2, just being real and true to yourself and to follow your dreams and to work for those things that you believe in. And like you said, July 31st, that was what a amazing way to try to make an impact by bringing some of those things to light. It was quite the day to see some of those things that we shouldn't just need one day out of the year to try to end that. But here we are. And like you said, that was a good chance for others to make their impact.
So let's talk about the next 2 items on the list of your framework, which is remain positive and being thankful.
Yeah, so I think these 2 just go very hand in hand. And part of these 2 for making an impact for me was, these are the lessons I learned growing up, right? My parents, just incredible parents that I hope I can be someday to my son. And, growing up, if I, in my rodeo events or sports or what have you, if I did bad, I was initially mad at myself right away, no matter what. And that negative attitude, young-minded negative attitude, I shouldn't have done this, I should have done that. And you can go through a million things in your mind of saying, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And my dad, being the quiet, soft-spoken cowboy that he is, just always reminded me to have a positive attitude and to focus on my next task at hand. And my mom reminded me about this a lot as well. And the same goes for us in the office, right? If we just constantly focus about that negative, bad thing that happened, then of course our actions are going to be negative, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And on the flip side, if you think positively and you focus on that positive attitude, better teamwork, and how can you make a positive impact in your credit union or in your job in general and in your marriage, wherever you are, then oftentimes people who are surrounded by positive people are positive themselves, and you can make a better impact on those around you. And the same goes for a lot of times positive people are also thankful people. And I can't tell you how many times that just somebody saying thank you to me meant more to me than doing the task at hand. And a thank you can go so far in someone's life, and you can hear thank you when you need it the most. And I think now, especially just with everything going on in the world, I think just hearing thankful and being kind and hearing that you matter is so important and can just truly make or break someone's day, can make or break someone's career, if they think that they're not worthy of that position they're in, or that they're not doing a good job because they never hear thank you. Just by saying thank you, that positive note of encouragement can truly lift somebody else up. So I think, like I said, that positive attitude and being thankful goes so hand in hand, but our huge way is of making an impact that literally costs nothing. It costs nothing to be nice and kind and be thankful for someone. And so I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, and to spin it a little bit, if you're a leader, there's a lot to be thankful for. I mean, just the mental capacity that we have to rely on with our employees right now is overloaded, and it's overflowing, right? People working from home, their work-life balances are shot, they're gone. Right. And that's unfair to them. It's unfair to everyone, really. And I think that we have a lot to be thankful for as leaders, which means that we can say it more, act like it more, because when people just show up right now, that's important.
Yeah. And that's hard right now. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, that's really hard right now, just to show up. So on the flip side of that too, I think from a leader standpoint and seeing my employees and my coworkers and stuff, I'm very thankful that they show up. But as an employee, I'm very thankful that we have the leaders in place that we do, that are taking on all these tough tasks that I would never I hope I never have to deal with as a leader in my role ever again, and I would never want to be in their shoes with some of these things that businesses and CEOs and people you have to make some really tough decisions when you're in a leadership role. And even now you have to make just incredibly hard decisions. So I think it goes both ways, saying thank you as a staff person, like thank you for keeping my job and seeing that my job is valuable right now and doing all that you can to help us with that work-life balance and being so understanding. But on the flip side, like from our CEO says thank you so much, and so does my boss and our leadership, thank you for being here and dealing with whatever comes your way, because that's just kind of life right now, right? Whatever comes our way, we'll deal with it together, is what they say.
Those that I know in my life that I've looked up to that kind of lead by example in this area and being thankful. I don't know very many people that show that they're thankful for things and aren't just really humble. I think it really goes hand in hand. I think that when you are showing that you're grateful and you're thankful for the things that your employees are doing, it also breaks down the walls of them seeing an unreachable height or them seeing like, oh, I can't communicate to that level. It breaks down that wall and makes those leaders seem more human, because they are.
Exactly.
And I think when we are, it also impacts, this is why I mentioned these two parts of the framework together, because I do think that when we are thankful and grateful for the things that our employees are doing, it helps us lead by example and being more positive. Like, this is what we have that we've been doing that's been really great, right? Let's focus there. Let's pull things from there to help motivate us. One of the ways that I like to, I always ask people when I very first met them, and I didn't ask you today, I normally would, but I would have asked you, what is motivating you right now? Because I like to hear people's thought process around either positive or negative. Like, some people are driven by, proving themselves through something negative that's happened in their life. Other people are driven by something that's positive that's happening in their lives, and they want to keep that momentum going. I would use that in your leadership. Ask people, what's motivating you right now? What is it? Understand them, and then use your framework. Listen, and listen to learn. Don't listen to respond. And I think that by doing that, you've laid out a really, really good framework that leaders can take away from this, and they can implement it right away. It might on the surface seem like these are simple things like we were talking about and that they're easy to do. But when you start actually putting together the framework and you evaluate yourself as a leader, am I doing these things? It's kind of eye-opening. Maybe I'm not doing 3 or 4, but I'm doing 1 and 5, right? And maybe 2, but it's just a constant way for us to continually measure ourselves against a framework that I think would work really, really well.
Thank you. Yeah. Like I said before we started this podcast, that I myself had to reread through these and think, okay, yep, maybe I need to work on that right now. Just because I lay these out and say this is a great framework doesn't mean I'm a rock star at it 24/7, right? We all have our good days and our bad days, but at the end of the day, I'm so thankful that I've had such incredible leaders in my life who have taught me so much. And so I think a lot of that framework stems from things I've learned from them, whether it's my parents to my current boss to CEO, even my husband, is a great leader in our marriage. And there's so many things that I think right now we, like you said, what motivates me? Is it negative or is it positive? I think there's so many things right now that we can see negatively, and that can be our motivator. But I'm always kind of a glass full type person, think of it on the positive side, that life could be so much worse and there could be so many other things going on right now that we can be negative. But if we focus on those positives and how can we grow those and how can we continually be better, just that positive light can really be the shining light in somebody else's life who might have some negative things that they're going through.
Yeah, I agree. And when we use this framework, I mean, I think that there's a cost right now that's happening for employees within this crisis, right? And that cost can be the member experience could have an impact, right? Because if employees aren't all the way in and they don't feel supported, then they're less likely to support the members in the way that a credit union would typically want to see. And there's a cost to that. Like that's member experience, right? And that cost comes out. And from a leadership perspective, you always want to kind of have a line of sight into that, right? And you always want to be understanding that. So, I mean, this framework also, I think, has a direct impact. When I was working at CloudCherry with customer experience in that space, right? There was this shift that was happening with customer and member experience where it was completely relying upon internal culture, one, and number two, how much was the leadership team working to improve the employee experience first. So this is that drink your own Kool-Aid, right? And you got to drink it before you serve it. You got to taste it. Mm-hmm. Does it have enough sugar? If it doesn't, right, we should probably add a little bit before we start pushing it to the members. And I think that if you wouldn't mind, give us your 2 cents on the cost of not doing this, right? And if there is a cost, or if we're not doing it today, what can people do to recover?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the costs, like you said, could be that member service. That could be a huge cost right now, depending on your place of business, employees not feeling safe maybe to go to work, and that's hurting the member experience because we need them there. They're knowledgeable, they're good at their jobs, they're in their job for a reason to provide that service to our members. So that's a cost to a place of business. And, there's, when you say cost, you tie it to financial cost. Are we feeling the cost financial wise? Now, a lot of credit unions might not be, but some of the staff might be, right? They might have been hit hard. Maybe a spouse lost their job. And then that impact is causing that emotional toil on the employee. And, I think of myself, I'm a hugger and I'm an extrovert and I love seeing people. And so to be able to have somebody tell me I can't go hug them, I can't shake hands when I first meet you, I can't go see my family, that's hard. That's emotionally draining on even bubbly people like myself. And so I think there's actually just a lot of different costs right now to making an impact, and it's all about how you react and how you're even proactive to some of the things that are going on in your office that can make or break a company. But I think right now I see more the mental health and the attitude as you come into work. It's so easy to think of COVID as really impacting people financially, right? People losing their jobs, all those things, groceries are higher, et cetera. But I think the thing we forget about is the mental health and being alone at home, not getting to hug other people, not having that face-to-face interaction. That's hard for not just employees, but for members. They love seeing staff come in, and that's hard. And so I think just, again, for companies to listen and communicate with their staff, and vice versa, for staff to communicate to the leaders and the leaders to communicate to them, and just to figure out what's going on and how can you make that better is going to be the recovery period going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that for the longest time, there has been this notion in leadership that you shouldn't be friends with the people you lead, right? And while there might be some truth to that in some areas, there's a component to just treating people as humans, right? that I think sometimes we miss in leadership. And to me, it really boils down to the very first part of your framework, which is listen. I'm not just talking about just listening to how things are impacting them, but you have to ask some questions right now for your employees to really understand how to help them from a mental health perspective. Perfect example. There are people that are going to be on your team that they aren't married, okay? They don't have family that's by them, that's near them, and they really are alone. You think you feel alone when you're married and you're like cooped up, right? Imagine being somebody who literally is alone and the only interactions they have are when they're on a Zoom call with you, right? I mean, I have somebody on my team who's in this situation, and I reached out to her and I explained to her what was happening. And I said, look, like, let's figure out a way to make sure that you feel that you're getting more interaction, that you don't feel as alone. And she's like, if you could just get on a Zoom call with me once a day, I'd really like that. And sometimes it's just the simple things, but I would have never known that if I wouldn't have asked some very personal questions, which I had to ask because I knew, right, that the impact of what's happening right now is bigger than just a business and a leadership responsibility. We have to, unfortunately, ask some of those questions that are a little bit more personal so that we can understand exactly how to serve our employees better than we are today. And I think that that's a missing piece that people they're afraid to ask those things.
Yeah, I totally 100% get what you're saying. And I think some of that just boils down to that human to human interaction and remembering that we're all human and having the compassion for one another. And so I think compassion is huge right now. And it's been talked about a lot here at our office and within meetings and stuff is just, there's some things where everyone's on pins and needles and it's a really easy time that you can get mad and you can be upset with one another and all these things and you can point fingers and blame, or you can just keep working hard, be kind, be compassionate, listen, to what's going on and to be understanding right now, because I think that's one of the biggest things is being compassionate and understanding that this is something none of us ever saw coming. And so we're all going to just have to work through it together. And so I firmly believe that the recovery period through all these challenges is going to look different for everyone. But by working together and open communication and just being kind and compassionate, that a lot of companies could really succeed with those few framework ideas, I guess, if you will.
Well, Katie, we're at time. I appreciate you tackling a tough subject today with me and hopefully providing some really, really good value for our listeners. Thanks for being on the podcast.